The Halloween season is finally upon us, and you know what that means. Candy corn season, baby! Woo-hoo-hoo! Come on, you deep down, you like candy corn. Absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, totally nothing wrong is wrong with that. It has the best ingredients. Don't worry about the asbestos. It's perfectly fine. Enjoy your candy corn, you son of a bitch. All jokes aside, Halloween is my personal favorite time of the year. It's a time of the year where the weather starts to cool down after a hot summer, and it is essentially the start of the holiday season. You got Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. It's up a new year, and then we all want to kill ourselves by the time January comes because we all realize how much of a big pieces of shit we are. Despite that, though, today we'll be taking a look at some of my personal favorite Halloween specials. And I figure we start with the obvious one that everybody probably knows at this point, and that is none other than the Treehouse of Horror.
Take me, take me.
Now, this was started back in 1990 with the second season of The Simpsons. And the Treehouse of Horror was introduced somewhat like obviously as a Halloween special. It was meant to be a one-time thing, but because of how successful and how popular it was, it clearly garnered an annual release from there on out. And yeah, every year, no matter what, I always tune in to watch Treehouse of Horror. I always watch them, even though some of them, as of late, haven't been great, although last year's was pretty good. In recent years, Simpsons has been up and down in quality. Some years the show picks up in quality, others it clearly doesn't, and it declines drastically. But nonetheless, I still, however, tune in for the annual Treehouse of Horror, and it's just such a warm feeling. Because again, it's the beginning of the winter season. So because of that, I obviously very much adore Treehouse of Horror. And that being said, I'm obviously going to keep it at the bottom of the list. We're going to go from bottom to it's my favorites, right? Yeah, I don't know. I want to keep these videos 10 minutes short, so I'm gonna say more things about some. So, but yeah, nonetheless, I still very much enjoyed the annual Treehouse of Horrors. It's my favorite Halloween special. Even one year would have sucked. You could always tune to like 10, 8, or my personal favorite, probably 5. 5 and like 8 are really good and shit. But yeah, Treehouse of Horror. It's definitely my personal favorites. Not a whole lot I could say. Everybody's kind of said what they had to say about it. But yeah, there are definitely better Halloween specials out there. But this is definitely my my go-to.
It worked, Patrick. I scared everybody.
Yeah, I guess it was your pink hat.
Pink hat? Oh, that's not a hat. That's my brain.
Oh.
Next on the list is probably the strangest Halloween special I've ever seen, and that is the SpongeBob Halloween special. That is, I want to say season 2, where SpongeBob wants to prove that he's scary, but everybody believes that he's so childish and immature that ultimately he just doesn't leave a lasting impression on anyone in Bikini Bottom. So he does the most bizarre thing and goes out of his way to essentially kind of shave off the entirety of his body, leaving really only his brain stem cell, what do you want to call it, that brain mush, the spine in his brain left. I absolutely adore this special. I think why it's so intriguing is that we always see Bikini Bottom just kind of, you know, in its original state. Everyone's in their original costumes, and I always love Halloween episodes because it lets the creators kind of play with the idea of giving characters different, you know, visuals, different designs, and they play with it. It's so much fun. I absolutely freaking adore the SpongeBob Halloween special, but obviously the others that have come before it, or not before it, after it, have not been as memorable. I don't even know them. If you know which ones they are, let me know down below, because I'm sure I've seen some of them, but they're not as memorable. I know they have like horror theme ones with the Flying Dutchman, but outside of that, again, I'm not the biggest fan of the Flying Dutchman as a character, even though he kind of appears in this one. Nonetheless, still not the biggest fan. The other ones that I clearly can't remember because, again, it's SpongeBob. It's one of those things where it's like you see the show and you see what it is, and you're like, all right, I can go without it. Alright, the next on the list is Marvel Studios' Werewolf by Night. One of the strangest additions, you could say, for it to be a Halloween special. It was the first time Marvel has done a quote-unquote special presentation. I don't know if they're going to do anymore, because the studio's kind of restructuring. They only done 2, which was the Werewolf by Night and the Guardians Christmas special. And Werewolf by Night being the directorial debut of Michael Giacchino, the guy who does a lot of the Pixar music. He most recently did the music for the Batman, and he's done like Mission Impossible music as well. I really fucking loved it. It was so different from what Marvel has been doing as of late. I'm not going to sit here and give you a whole shenag of Marvel. I think that's just low-hanging fruit at this point. But out of all the projects, even my most anticipated in 2022, which was Multiverse of Madness, they just feel like corporate cookie cutter products that just don't have enough passion or dedication put to them, which is fine. It is what it is. Welcome to the entertainment industry. But where, in my opinion, Werewolf by Night pushed the envelope further for Marvel to kind of experiment outside of the traditional MCU stuff, I loved it. It was the first time we kind of see gore in the MCU, although it's black and white. I know this upcoming Friday, it's supposed to get a made in color or a Technicolor version. I'll check that out to see how gory it is, but nonetheless, I absolutely adore Werewolf by Night. The score is great, the visuals are great, the performances are great. The only thing that kind of sucks about it is, again, it's a special. It's short. It's like under an hour. It's like 50 minutes, and it's kind of over before it starts to get good. It starts off really atmospheric, really moody, and just as it's getting really big, it ultimately comes to an inevitable end. And it kind of bothers me because we may not see these characters return into the MCU. I know Marvel, as of late, has been kind of restructuring, obviously, with many of the most recent releases being, rather Disney as a whole, most of their releases have been less than ideal and have not been bringing in the financial backing as they wanted. I could definitely see them not wanting to experiment with Werewolf by Night or any type of Halloween special or any type of special, knowing so well that they may not bring in the viewership at Disney Plus as a whole. But nonetheless, Werewolf by Night is phenomenal. I think it is like one of the go-to things to watch if you want to watch something spooky outside of a movie. Again, one of the best horror Halloween specials, so check it out when you guys can. It's definitely great.
I told you I was ripped.
Most people don't know that Regular Show had a Halloween anthology akin to the Treehouse of Horror. Coming out way back in 2011 with the 3rd season of the show, I've always had a blast watching these episodes. I really look forward to them every year. My personal favorites are episodes 1, 2, and 4. They tend to go outside of the norm for Regular Show, and the show itself is pretty nutty to begin with. So I can at least applaud the writer for doing something insane and fun, while still keeping a vibe to the show. So hey, hats off to the folks over who wrote this show. I'm glad these personally exist, just because, again, Regular Show's a show that can get a little samey. I still love the show, and frankly, it's one of my personal favorite shows of all time. But the fact that these Halloween episodes exist tend to break up a little bit of the monotony of the episodic nature of the show. But again, the show's already nutty to begin with, so it balances itself out. The premise of the episodes usually entail the gang telling horror stories. Obviously, they want to scare each other, but sometimes the stories come off to be a little more janky or not so scary. Pops usually tells the less scary story, but sometimes they tell some goofier and crazier stories. I'm sure you've seen that one meme about you and your buddy getting turned into a cat because you made fun of a wizard, and the wizard got mad and decided to extract a little bit of a vengeance upon you and turning you into a cat. Well, I don't know if this is the first time this sort of meme could be based off that, but in like the first Terror Tales of the Park, there's a segment in which Rigby decides to do a little bit of trolling. He gets a couple of eggs and decides to egg a wizard's house. So to show him a little karma, the wizard decides to pretty much turn Rigby into a house, ultimately getting the entire gang killed, and then inevitably, as always, just doing a little bit of trolling by egging him back. It's a little crazy, it's a little nutty, but that's why I love these episodes. They're really fun. Like I said, episodes 1, 2, and 4 are my personal favorites. 3, 5, and 6, because there's only 6 of these, are still pretty good. And as a matter of fact, I think if you watch them all, there's a lot of fun having it just watching them all consecutively. But personally, for me, 1, 2, and 4 definitely do the trick. So check those out when you guys get a chance.
Whoa, is that blackface, dude?
And finally, to wrap things up for this first Halloween video, we cannot go without mentioning one of my personal favorite Halloween specials from last year, and that is the Smiling Friends Halloween special. Created by Zach Hadel and Michael Cusick. I want to mention their names because, you know, they're cool people. They created their show way back in 2022. They originally had a pilot, but the pilot did good. Now the pilot was successful enough to garner them making a show. They released their whole entirety of their season within one night, and one of the first episodes I saw, because I tuned in a little too late, was the Halloween special, and it really left a lasting impression on me. I think what worked about it was just how simple and basic it was. Usually with a lot of these Halloween specials, they tend to be a little outlandish, a little goofy, and sometimes a little out there for my liking. What I like is a simple premise, you know. A perfect example is SpongeBob. SpongeBob in the Scaredy Pants episode wants to be, he wants to be scary, but he goes through trial and tribulations to be scary, ultimately to pretty much coming out to be the scariest out of all of them. And it's no different with Smiling Friends. Obviously, the biggest thing that happens is that Pim has to go into the forest and get some firewood. Ultimately, by doing so, however, Pim gets a little cocky as he's warned by the boss not to venture too far ahead because he'll get lost, and ultimately that's what happened. And by doing so, he somehow and inexplicably just manages to enrage the forest demon. There's a little bit of a joke that's set up early in the episode. Everybody's dressed up. I always love Halloween episodes when each character gets their own little special costume. Pim, Glep, and Alan are all dressed up. Alan's dressed as a Joker for some reason. Ultimately, everybody asks Charlie, "Why aren't you dressed up?" And Charlie's like, "I don't dress up because people could find anything offensive, and it'll come back and bite you in the ass." And ultimately, that's how the episode kind of pays off at the end. As Pim is being chased by the forest demon starts to pretty much get a gain on him until Pim manages to happen to find himself across the party he was trying to collect the wood for. And right before Pim basically gets devoured, a misconception or a misunderstanding ensues where people assume the forest demon is a racist and in blackface, and ultimately ends up finding himself at the mercy of the enraged crowd. It's a great episode, very simple premise. What works about it, again, it's simple, but it's out there, it's fun. I like to see these Halloween specials do something inventive. Again, it's Smiling Friends. It's a show that's pretty mundane in its premise, but I think it works with the writers and how they do it well enough. So yeah, in conclusion, Halloween specials, they're fun. I plan on doing a little bit, covering a couple more Halloween specials, but I'm running a little behind. I wanted to have this out by Monday. Today's already Monday by the time I'm finishing recording this conclusion. So, you know, that's always fun, just being a little behind. But nonetheless, thank you guys for sticking around and listening to me babble about absolutely nothing. But as always, I enjoy the fact that somebody's still watching this. So hey, check these videos out. Do me a favor. Share. If you enjoyed what you watched, share it amongst your crowd. I don't know. Have fun with it. So yeah, on top of that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.